And
You're listening to Trailblazers.fm, an interview-styled podcast that delves deep into bold conversations with successful Black entrepreneurs and leaders. Join us weekly to learn actionable strategies, valuable tactics, and innovative tools that you can put to use immediately on your journey to blazing your trail. And now, here's your host, my husband, Stephen A. Hart.
Blazer Nation, good morning and welcome to another Wednesday Live. If you are joining us, I want to invite you to drop a comment right now and let us know who you are, where you're connecting with us from. We love to have great conversations. And so this Wednesday, I'm blessed to be joined in another Wednesday takeover by my brother from another, Mr. Shawn Dove. Mr. Dove Source, I'll have you introduce both of our featured guests for today.
Great. You know, the champ is here, and I'm here with a bunch of three other champions. And Stephen, I just wanted to thank you for sharing your Trailblazers platform with me for those Wednesday takeovers. You know, folks have invited me places and said, don't you ever come back here again. So I appreciate you inviting me back. So much love for you, right? And when we talked about this week's episode, what struck me in the moment was these two dear brothers in my life, Alfonso Wyatt and Ron Walker. They both celebrated birthdays in September, right? And I'm blessed to have constant contact with these seasoned brothers in my life, right? And we think about trailblazers, right? They have helped blaze a trail for me, right? And I said, you know what? Let's bring them on. With the theme of harvesting our elder grace, right? And so I'm going to ask them questions. I'm going to let them introduce themselves, but I've known both Alfonzo I've known 35, almost 40 years of my life. He has been the Bundini Brown in X order in my corner in this fight that we have been in. And Ron, I've known for 14, 13 years, and they're just two exemplary leaders. And I'm going to just invite them both into the space, say hello. I'm going to start with Ron Walker and welcome you, Ron. And, you know, I was listening to the theme music with coming into Trailblazers and just thinking about how familiar I am with that, right? For 6 years listening to the theme music. And Ron, you're going to let me just warn the audience now. So Ron's a deacon and an orator. Alfonso is a preacher, right? So I don't have to ask another question, right? I can just say, you know, so just want to let them know this is an hour show. and so, Ron, just for the Trailblazer audience, introduce yourself, but introduce yourself with a theme. What's your theme song for the day, right? The soundtrack. We heard the intro of Trailblazers, and that resonated. Who is Ron Walker? What does Ron Walker do? And what is your theme song for today? All right. So, Alfonso, you get a little.
You get some time on that.
Let's go.
Yeah, you know, you get some time. But let me tell you what and thank you, Shawn and Stephen and Brother Alfonso. Good to be on. Before I get I'm thinking of, as I'm talking about my theme song, but my theme for this year, since I just turned 75, is Thrive in 75. Right? So, you know, I'm looking at 75 as a thriving year. Now I'm still trying to come up with that song. It's got to be something from Philly because I'm from Philly. I don't know whether some of the sounds of Philadelphia music and Teddy Pendergrass or Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes. But something's gonna come to me, Sean. It might be between now and the end, but just know that I like that upbeat music. I like music that gives me that energy in the morning. My probiotic music, something that stimulates the gut. So while I'm still meandering, brother Alfonso, so by the time he gets there, I'll come up with the song. But you got my theme, Drive 75, and maybe I'll get some words to around that as well.
All right. We're gonna go to Alfonso, then we'll come back to you.
Yeah. Ron, when you talked about Teddy Pendergrass, I said, I hope his theme ain't turn off the lights. I mean, I said, well, look, my name is Alfonso Wyatt. Reverend Doctor is one title that I have. One that I really push is Uncle Fonzo. Uncle Fonzo, because I want to not much of what we do, we relate to each other out of platforms. We relate to each other out of how we see the brand. My brand is that I'm family. My brand is that I am an elder. Ron got me by a few, so I'm a junior elder on this call. But my 72nd birthday just came by. Now, I've worked with young people all of my life, so I got a whole different kind of flow. I got a flow that has been kind of shaped by working with young people. When you work with young people, your stuff is on the line each and every, not day, but moment. You could be great last week and this week, boom, you ain't what's happening. So they kept me on my toes. I've had the pleasure of loving Shawn Dove as a brother, as a friend, as a mentor, and also as part of his staff. So I have a kind of 360 view of my brother. And my song, as soon as you said it, first there was dead space in my head, but this came out. What's going on? Marvin Gaye. I mean, I'm asking, everybody's asking themselves that question. You have to be, if you are aware, alert, and alive, you dig that little A alliteration. I could have got 3 more. And I'm funny. I'm an elder that ain't trying to run nobody's life, but I'm trying to pour into life. And I'll leave it there.
Yeah. And see, brother Sean. Now, see, brother Alfonso, I knew he was going to do that, took that Marvin Gaye song because that was coming out my mouth too. But I got a couple of Philly songs for you. Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes, If You Don't Know Me By Now. And I think for me, most people, after a while, they know who Ron Walker is. I try to be real deal. I won't say Holyfield because he was in that fight where he shouldn't have been in that fight at all. But I try to be authentic. I try to be truthful. I try to treat people the way I want to be treated. So I would say if you don't know me by now, you'll never know me. And I, like Brother Alfonso, have been, I guess, raised with the capacity and the belief that there's genius in young people, and I've devoted 50 plus years to working with young people, from a teacher to a principal to assistant principal and now a COSEBOC. Because, again, that's another song, children are our future, let them lead the way. And I've just tried to pass every wisdom that I've accrued from elders who passed it to me down to somebody else.
So thank you, brothers, for that introduction, man. Just want to let you know that I love both of you and love you too, Stephen. Don't feel left out, and you both lifted up, just pouring into and paving the way for young people. In my younger days, right, I thought that by the time I was 50 years old, I would be shopping for my rocking chair. I would be looking for the cruise control button, right? And as the time has gone on, I realized that that's at an age for me that I felt like I was just getting started. the inspiration that I derive from the both of you is, and I heard Alfonso coin this term, or maybe I coined it and he stole it, but we'll share it. Not retirement, but refirement, right? And what I would love for you to share with the Trailblazer audience, one, around this long view, right? Like, at 24, I thought, at 50, I'd be retiring, right? And at 58, that is not the case, having a long view. But also, what is refiring you in this season where some folks are just in retirement mode? We're going to start with you, Ron, real quick, and then we're going to go with you, Alfonso. And Stephen, who's the facilitator, catalyst, and the host of hosts, will jump in as he sees fit.
Well, I love the word refirement, too, because I, like Brother Alfonso, see these as golden opportunity years. And what I say when somebody talks to me about retirement, I said, what? I said, I'm working differently, but I'm not retiring. Because I think, again, what we've been gifted with is this capacity to give to others, our wisdom, the things that we have done that maybe we bumped our heads a few too many times. Well, that wisdom, that conversation with a young man or young woman might help them to have one less bump in their head. So I think that this whole notion of being fired up, it's fired up because, the pandemic, and you said many times that the pandemic is a portal, right? We can see all kinds of dilemmas and pain in it. And there's plenty of that. But there's also opportunity in this pandemic to really think differently, act differently, do differently. What does it mean to do differently than I did before, a year ago, before the pandemic? What does it mean to notice differently? When I walk now, I notice things that I didn't even notice before because I was running to the airport, running here and there. So, this time of refinement gives me a time to be kind of a stable influence for a young man or young woman who's looking at this elder, this Baba, and saying, what is he doing here? He's still being active, and like Brother Alfonso said, it's not that we're trying to be young, but we get it. We understand, we're plugged into some of the things. I know Brother Alfonso, I've heard him rhyme and rap. I throw a few bars down there every now and then, but we don't put ourselves into an embarrassment mode. Is that we are relevant and authentic, that we understand what the generations are going through, and we want to help them to lead the way to a new way. So I think this opportunity for refinement, and just one last thing, I was refired up even more when I called a mentor, who was our first speaker, Dr. Edmund Bryant, Gordon, to be a speaker at our anniversary event. And he was our first speaker 15 years ago, and he was 85. And I called Dr. Gordon before our anniversary, said, Dr. Gordon, you may not remember me, but he said, Ron Walker. And he was just as clear, just as lucid. And I said, hey, if he's doing it now, he's at 100. I got a few more years to go in terms of what I can do. So I'm fired up, and I like to get up that way and like to go to bed that way.
Well, I retired at 62, and I knew that there was more to do. And I don't know if I took that line from Shawn. I probably did, because he's Mr. Diddy. He can come up with a ditty on the drop. But I told the group not retired, but refired. And that refired, there were things in my heart that I still knew that I wanted to do. I am Uncle Fonzo to a number of formerly incarcerated individuals, because over the lifespan, I could just say, I did that. I did that and didn't get caught. Now, most people don't like to admit that, but you come to a certain age, who cares? And no, it's real.
It's real.
Because it's what is the fire has to be stoked. There has to be something that keep the embers burning, and a lifelong passion and love for people, our people, for young people. And given the parameters and given the radical X factors that we all must negotiate, you solve a problem on one hand, and it unravels another thing on the other hand, something that you didn't even think to see. So all I can tell you is that I feel, and I tell everybody, and I can get a little country on you and say everybody.
Everybody.
That's right. I tell them, you have to believe that you were born for a time such as this.
Amen.
When you believe that you are walking in your destiny, when you believe that you are immersed in your purpose, that's the fuel that keeps you keeping on. And there is so much out there. And I'm glad you got my Twitter thing there, because I don't even know it. But when I'm moved, I write elder wisdom. I'm not trying to talk to nobody. I ain't trying to get a job. I'm not trying to whatever. I just want to drop something so that when I leave this world, somebody would say that brother tried to be a light. He kept his light on until the big Con Ed up in heaven said, lights out. You got PSG and G, so I got to be inclusive. So keep shining until you can't shine anymore. That's my advice to anybody, no matter what age you are. Keep your light shining until you can't shine anymore.
I love
Say it, Doc.
that.
Say it, Doc.
Preach it. Listen, I often say that aging is mandatory and growing old is optional. And you guys are living that one out for sure. I talk a lot, Rev, you touched on purpose just a second ago, and I touch a lot on having a sense of clarity around, your purpose, your vision. Could you both talk to now being, in your 70s, what advice would you give about people, looking at what purpose really is, right? And is there a different perspective? Because I know time often shifts our perspective and our view on things. How do you look at purpose at this point?
My.
is right. Well, Ron, since I was last, I'm going to jump in, and then
please do, brother.
You can take the crumbs that he didn't leave.
Leave me a little bit. Leave me a few.
Yeah, we're creatives. We can do a lot with crumbs. Right? Yeah, we can do a lot with crumbs.
That's right. Put it together, you got a pie.
That's right.
But at any rate, your purpose in life is to find your purpose in life. And most folk are looking for things in life. And you can find things, but things don't always add up to purpose. Purpose is that fire that burns. Purpose, Brother Hart, is that clarity that you speak of. When you know that you know that you know, that's different than thinking that you know or hoping you're going to find out. Or as some would say, faking it until you make it. And it's all of these different classes and boxes that people can find his or herself in. Your purpose is divinely given, but it must be accepted. And because you have a purpose, it doesn't mean that things are not going to take you off path or take you or rock you or shape you or misshape you or cause you to question. But when you come back to that thing that called you, there's something about feeling called and compelled to do. I love the fact that purpose is in me. And when purpose is in you, you don't have to worry about being bored. In fact, you get old enough and you can welcome boredom. Because what it means is that you got a chance to refire, retune, rethink, and it's not always. Stay on destiny's road. It was given to you, but you must struggle to keep it. I'll end right there, my brother Walker.
Thank you. He's left me a few crumbs to follow up on, and I ditto everything the brother said. And let me just add this: that I also say that purpose has ignition points, I will call them. I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. And for me, my purpose was ignited before I knew it was ignited. It was ignited by a mother who would nightly recite to me, mother to son, when I was a little boy. I had no clue what she was saying. I had no clue at the time what mother to son was all about, but she kept reciting that poem to me. You know, later on in life, and I said to my mother, I'm slow but I'm not stupid. I finally got it. You know, she was planting seeds of me, which was my purpose, because my mother was an educator who didn't get the education degree. She was planting something in me, you know. Now, on the flip side, I had a father who had no education. South Carolina, couldn't read, couldn't write. But as you heard many times when people say, he was the smartest man I knew, because he understood what I needed. And so he took my butt out on a construction job. He was a construction worker in Philly when I was 14. I was underage, but he was a labor foreman. He said, I'm going to give you some big overalls and some boots, and you go over there and, you know, work with this carpenter. And after I stepped on 1,800 nails and got hit in the head with boards and worked that way to pay my way to college, I understood what the purpose was of what he was doing. He was showing me, son, you don't want to be out here. This is not where you want to be. And I said, later on, Dad, I got your plan. I later wrote a book called Solomon's Plan, The Gift of Education from a Father to His Son, because those two parents ignited something in me, which was that divine purpose that Brother Alfonso was talking about that's already in you. For my purpose was to be an educator. You know, I later found out what it meant to do the kind of study it would take, but it was because of two ignition points, mom and dad. Both had different trajectories, different ways about it. You know, my father used to say, son, I can't tell you too much because you're educated, you know. Let me tell you this. If you listen, you learn, you know, and if you listen to people long enough, they'll tell you everything that you want to know about them. So that was one of those gifts he planted in me. You know, my father was a number writer. For those who may know, back in the day before the legal lottery, he was a number writer in Philadelphia. And he also was a relationship man. So I got that purpose, that gift of relationships from my father. So I think, again, this divinely planted, like Brother Alfonso said, I truly believe that. And oftentimes we run away from our purpose. We look out the window, not in the mirror. But when you finally get stopped, either by an intervention from a parent, from a mentor, from a coach, from an elder, and say, I see something that you don't see in yourself, you know, that purpose starts to evolve.
I love that. And I'll just add to that and say, you know, in addition to family, sometimes it's God's blessing certain people in your life at certain points in time. I really feel like even this platform with Trailblazers.fm was something God planted in me in my 30s. And I didn't know truly, you know, how much this platform was needed. 6 weeks after I started this platform, this guy right here, Shawn Dove, shows up in my Twitter DMs and says, hey, you know, if you didn't create this, I was going to create it myself. And Shawn's one of those igniters, right? For many of us. And I didn't realize that. I thought, you know, something was unique till I showed up at a Rumble and I realized this is who Shawn is and what Shawn does. And, you know, ignited that purpose, ignited that fire, helped me to see what I couldn't even see myself at that point in time and what this could become. And so I love that. Thank you both for sharing what you did.
I want to tease this ignition metaphor out a little bit. We have all, let me speak for myself, there has been a time or two or three where I have put the key in the ignition of my car, turned the key, and the car didn't turn over, whether it was the battery or something else, right? And, Richard Pryor had this saying, you don't get to be old being no fool, right? And I would love for the both of you to share a story of when in your life, you're both founders, creatives, social impact leaders, when in your life you turn the key, the ignition key, it would not turn on. Because there's somebody that's listening today that tuned in, may have stumbled in, and they're trying to get ignited and they can't. They're turning the key. What has been your story? And I know that you have many, where the ignition key would not turn. And what did you do?
Well, you're going down a road that I seldom I know it, but I don't speak on it.
Come on.
I am, and Ron, and I read Ron's book. I read it, so I knew about that. Your dad did the same thing to me. I worked in a factory with the most racist people in New York City. I didn't know where I was. I'm also the son of a sharecropper. And most people don't even know what that is. I believe that I am the beneficiary of the sharecroppers' prayers. My mom prayed in the fields when she was 11. Lord, make me somebody and take me out of these fields. My ignition, I had a great car, but I didn't value it. That's how I'll do it. I was given a great car that I did not value. So I dogged that car. I just wanted it to look good to people who saw me driving by. That's when you be doing that little pinky swinging, Yeah. With a little something out the window. And when that car wouldn't start, and I realized that it was because of me, not because of mechanical difficulties, I did not value. And I know that what you don't value, you do not protect. And that ignition came. I had to go to a master igniter. And they didn't dog me out for not taking care of the car. They showed me how to take care of the car. And beloved, those who are listening, I've been driving ever since. And when I meet some people by the side of the road, I take the knowledge, the inspiration, even sometimes the desperation, in order to get to the destination. So ignition, and when Ron said that, he had two ignition points. When he said that, I got excited. And then when you followed up, and this is what it is. And all we doing is being, not we in these boxes, but we in life. There comes a time that you got to be real.
That's right.
And it's one thing to be real to others, but there's still another reality inside the reality of being real to yourself. So that was my ignition moment. I had a depressed solenoid. Some of y'all don't even know. I used to have a thing called a solenoid. Yeah. And that's what generated the spark. And if you didn't get that, everything else was moot. But the mechanic that I went to pulled me up, rewired my thinking, and I've been running ever since.
Come on, man.
I love that. We're going to go to Ron, but my thing was always your catalytic converter
Catalytic converter.
I was like, what's a catalytic converter? It needs fixing, right? It's going to right? But I want to be a catalytic converter, right?
Yes,
I love
indeed.
that, right? And Ron, so just talk a little bit about just the resiliency, because you both are mentors, and quite often we hear the success stories, right? And the raising the flag stories, but we don't hear often enough the vulnerability and resiliency story, the ignition key being turned and the engine not turning over. And what have you done in those times?
Well, Shawn, two things come to my mind. One, when I was 15, 16, and one when I was, as they say, a grown A man. And the one at 15 was, and this is, I'm speaking, I really want to speak to young men, young women who at times get caught up in that crowd. And I was caught up in the crowd, went to a baseball game, and a couple brothers, and we got bored with the baseball game. So, one of the brothers, there was always someone who's a catalytic agent, said, let's do this. Let's go, at that time you did mustard dispensers and ketchup dispensers. Let's go and load it up in the cup and then throw it down on people and then run like heck. Did that, got away with it. I was having fun with that. Then we left the ballpark and, we boarded the elevated train in Philly. And we said, and the same brother said, let's do a little something else. Let's unscrew these light bulbs. And, the train is coming. We can unscrew these bulbs, drop it down, and you know what kind of sound it makes. And so we did that. We dropped it down, ran on the train, thought the train was going to pull off. The train didn't move. Running up the steps, we hear the footsteps of the gendarmes, the police, who yanked us off that train, started whipping us from here to there, took us to the local precinct in Philly. There was 3 of us, and no representation. I remember like it was yesterday. Got the backhand, and then somebody said, "Whose parents gonna call?" And nobody wanted to call their parents. But one thing about my father, being again back to Brother Alfonso, being worldly, he knew police, and the police knew him. And so I called my father, and he came and got me. And he said, what did you learn from this experience? And that was a turning point for me, because I followed, again, these folks we follow. So I followed the wrong person who was leading me. And it caused me to really look within and said, I have to do better about leading myself. So that was it. And I think if I fast forward, Shawn, this story. When we were riding high with the COSEBOC, getting $1 million contracts here, $1 million contract here. We got a $1 million contract with Philadelphia to do the Sankofa Rite of Passage program. I had 20 people on the ground, who really, really rolling. Then all of a sudden, I get a call one day that said that the school district is out of money. And we got to pull the rug out from under the 20 people you have working on the ground. And all contract, no matter how successful Sankofa was, and it was very successful changing life of young men, we had to stop it because we don't have no money. And I literally hit bottom. You remember that. That lesson of hitting bottom. And what it taught me is about the preparation. I was putting all my eggs in one basket. I wasn't diversifying. I wasn't, doing the kind of things I know now to do. So the lessons learned by being burned, running out of gas, coming in last.
Yeah, you go on, boy. Go on, boy.
Breaking out into a sniper here, right?
So, those are 2 things that stand out in my mind as turning point moments.
You just say it's not how far you fall, it's how high you bounce, right?
Yes, sir.
And, we need to hear those stories. And people often ask, what would you say to your younger self? Both of you are founders, right? And Ron, you mentioned COSEBOC. People may not, well, what does COSEBOC mean? Folks that are not familiar, for those that are unfamiliar with Ron and what COSEBOC is, it's the Coalition of Schools Educating Boys of Color, right? And Alfonso Wyatt is the founder of Strategic Destiny. What would you say to a 44-year-old young man who is the father of two, entrepreneurial, big dreamer? He may have launched a podcast called Trailblazers, and he is a brand innovator, has just launched in-demand brand, or the brand, I'm messing up the brand. But for the 44-year-old, not just young men, but big dreamers, what seeds of inspiration and ignition would you offer them in this moment as they continue along their journey?
There's something exciting about being gifted with creativity. I would tell that person, you got to be careful that your gift does not turn into a curse.
Mm-hmm.
And the pursuit of the same, there's something exciting. Brother Hart, there was something exciting when you came up with Trailblazer. You're putting the pieces and you could see it coming together. And I just said that because I'm talking to entrepreneurs. And there's entrepreneurs that's listening. But it's, you got to get things, but things can't get you.
Mm.
And if the thing gets you, then you become the servant of the thing. And that can take you to places and spaces that seem like you're on your way to where you think you should be headed, but you're actually heading towards a brick wall. And that vehicle that you got back into, now you done crashed it up. There are moments in life that one must pause and reflect and re-up. Remember that term, back on the street? Oh, look at them laughing. Look at them laughing. You got to
look at what I'm talking about.
Yeah, you don't know what I'm talking about. Both you and Ron laughing. And Brother Hart, too. You got to re-up. And whatever that re-up is, it has to always take in account your family. This ain't about a trip, a solo trip. You're taking everybody in your rocket ship. And you got to remember family. And it ain't all going to happen overnight. Takes time. I'll leave it there.
We'll pass it on to you, Ron.
Yes, and just building on what the brother Rev talked about, which again I 100% concur with. I would say invest in rest, because we rush again. But invest in rest and quality rest. Your dream may not be your son's dream. Your dream, and I heard this from OG Alfonzo, beware that your dream doesn't become somebody else's nightmare. So be careful about the dream. And read what Langston Hughes said about dreams.
Yeah.
This is another sort of stoking up the thought about that. I would say that there's three important things in life: faith, family, and future. The 3 F's. As you talk about building your dream, you got to have faith in something, and not just yourself. Yourself is first, but, I believe that faith in the Most High that gives me guidance, because I got to talk to somebody, Your family, underscore that, is hugely important. In the future, how are you defining future? So I also would say seeking guidance from OGs or Babas or those folks who've been around the block, knowing that there's not too many things that are new under the sun. There may be variations on the theme, but I think what's your special piece to that, and how you twist it and add it and turn it may make it something else unique. And I always know that somebody's going to follow up with you. And one day said, Brother Hart, I want to start this out. What's your advice? So you're trailblazing because somebody else is following that trail that you blazed.
Mm-hmm. So I'm honored and grateful that the two of you are contributors to my forthcoming book that I co-wrote with Nick Childs, I to America, on loving and leading Black men and boys. And if Stephen Hart is on point, we'll see that link for the pre-order in the chat shortly. And Ron, you created and contributed a mini manifesto when you talk about from pandemic to promise. And my good brother, Alfonso Wyatt, what I love about the book is sandwiched by Elder Grace, right? Susan L. Taylor has written the foreword, and Alfonso Wyatt has written the epilogue. But the tagline of the book, I to America, on loving and leading Black men and boys. And if you can share with our audience, when you hear on loving and leading Black men and boys, how does that manifest? How is that manifested in your life? And you, Ron, you just talked about the future. Where do we go with that ethos of loving and leading Black men and boys?
I think one of the things, I've said this before, I believe I said to you, Shawn, but if not, I'll say it again anew, that before I got associated with the Campaign for Black Male Achievement, before I met Alfonso Wyatt, before I met Shawn Dove and all the other many brothers and sisters that are part of this movement, particularly the brothers, I never was in a circle of men that said, I love you so much, as they say. The very act of saying that is huge. The very act of calling a brother who maybe look like he's a hard head, from around the way, and you saying, brother, I love you, that's a step in a dimension that, hitherto we would not do. We were too macho, we were too this or too that. So that by itself, to continue in the future, to really, again, another ignition point, I love you. We start our meetings that way, we close our meetings that way, and we truly mean it. The other part of that manifestation is I've never seen, rumble, young man, rumble, and how many tears will come out of brothers' eyes because, Black men ain't supposed to cry. So again, these manifestations have got to be part of what goes forward in the future, modeling for our little boys, rather than saying man up, okay? As though, you're 2 or 3 years old and you start to shed and you saying man up, right? But to really say that, shedding of tears is the shedding of pain, is releasing those tensions, is saying that I am fragile, but I'm strong at the same time. Weak about me, you can say more than one thing at the same time. So I think carrying that forth is something that I have learned and that I have practiced. Whether it's just think about all the times when you tweet or text somebody, how many times you end with that, you begin with the salutation, I love you, or you end with, I love you, and it's a conscious act that had 10 years ago, 15 years ago, wouldn't be part of that dynamic. So I think that is crucial to anchoring our young men. And at the same time, Chris Emden wrote a book, Ratchetdemics. And he basically was saying, sometimes we artificialize ourselves to pretend we something else and not our real self. So Brother Alfonso and I You know, we can do ratchet terms, but you know, we know what you know what we know what we know.
That's right.
So we can go to Harvard or MIT and talk the talk, but then go around the block and walk the walk.
Mm.
So I think that being authentic in those spaces, I think, is what has to continue.
Walk on, Walker. Walk on. and I wish I could come up with something other than what he just said. So I'll do it this way. Once I lost the fear of telling people I love you, that's when my work exploded. To be able to look in a man and a woman's eyes, and she knows, let me just deal with women because I mentor men and women, that this ain't no hanky panky, this ain't no stealth attack, a little bloomerade. No, it ain't any of that. I love you. I love the potential in you. I love the power in you, the direction in you. I even love the parts that's hard to love in you. And being able to communicate that. Uncle Fonzo communicates that without me having to say it all the time. Just talk to me. Talk to Uncle.
Yes.
So that's part of it. The vulnerability, Walker, that you mentioned, we are, as men, now I'm going back to men, we are preconditioned to be suspicious of each other.
That's right.
And that authentic self and that false self, unless you resolve that tension inside of you, you will always be duplicitous. You will always seem like one way, but really walking another way. Aligning your purpose, aligning your true self, wrapped in spirit and propelled by purpose. That's what we need. People are making space for everybody. Oh, I got to make space for this and make space for that. It's a nice sounding concept. But if you're not making space for yourself, your labor is in vain.
That's right.
As we would say on the street, you hustling backwards. I too have a book, Beware the Mind Hustler.
I was about to go there.
Identifying self-destructive thoughts and distractions. You go there. You can go there better than I can. I have to be shy in that regard. So love is the answer. Love is the question, and love is the answer.
And so, Alfonso, you have been prolific in your refirement. I think since you refired, you have published at least 4 or 5 books. A couple of them co-authored with your queen, Wyatt. But I think your most recent book, as you shared, is the Beware of the Mind Hustle, right? And quite often in our leadership, entrepreneurial, creative journeys, we spend a lot of time looking out the window, saying, where are we going? And casting a vision, but not enough time looking in the mirror. And self-awareness is, there's this book, another book called The Messy Middle, where Scott Belsky says that self-awareness is the only competitive advantage, sustainable competitive advantage in business. Talk about the mind hustler, right? And you talk about creating space. And we often know that the most valuable space is this space between our ears, right? Talk a little bit about the concept of the mind hustler. Folks, you can get this book at Amazon.com under Alfonso Wyatt. Tell us about that book.
Okay. I originally wrote Beware the Mind Hustler for people coming out of prison, for people in prison, for people who are trying to rebuild their lives. I've had a spot in my heart for people who messed up. Because in a sense, I messed up. I just didn't get caught. And so here I am wondering one day, how did you get so far off track? I mean, it's one thing to be off track, but I mean, the mind hustler The mind hustler comes and hijacks your mental PA system and begins broadcasting in your own voice, self-destructive thoughts and bringing distractions, where something seems that it is the thing to do, but it is the very thing that the mind hustler is using to bring you down. The mind hustler wants you to hustle backwards, take 2 steps up, 3 steps back, and forget that you owe a step somewhere. And I end it with, in my rumination, go on, somebody. In my rumination.
Go ahead, Stephen.
Stephen, I'm gonna cut these 2 dudes loose, man, and come back to you, man. In my illumination, I had to understand that as beautiful as the mind is, it can be your worst enemy. And you've got to evict the mind hustler and come to a point where you are saying, I can do this. I must do this. I'm in charge. And last, the spirit said, yeah, you wrote that for people coming out of prison, but check this out. There are more people locked up in their mind than can ever fit in all of the prisons. And they never did any time. They're doing time locked up in their mind. The cell block of self. All right.
Come on, man.
I know we coming. I'm looking at the time, and I want to make sure, sir, you have, we won't get a hasty retreat like we've seen in some countries. We won't have a hasty retreat. We're going to have an orderly one. And thank you, Steve. Thank you for putting that up. I mean, I am a technological dinosaur. So just to see all of this is just like, you got that StreamYard, brother. Hey, as they say back, the brothers on the street, they walk in the yard, my brother. You walk in the StreamYard.
Love it.
Keep a sense of humor too, y'all, because life will drive you crazy.
That's
Learn
right.
to laugh. Laughter is medicine, and it can also be a great tool.
That's right.
So I know that we're winding down, and I don't know, Stephen, if there are any questions in the chat and that we might want to address, but I do have a quote from Matthew Kelly, who wrote this book called The Long View, that I wanted to put out there and get both Ron's and Alfonso's feedback to this quote as we begin to wind down. And what Matthew Kelly says in The Long View: most people overestimate what they can do in a day and underestimate what they can do in a month. We overestimate what we can do in a year and underestimate what we can accomplish in a decade. Whatever it is you wish to succeed at in life, personally or professionally, few skills will serve you better than the ability to take the long view. And I know Dr. Pamela Jolly's on, and she, in her writings, talks about the tower view, to see further and farther than where you are. And as we begin to close, share the seeds that you are sowing, what you see for not only yourselves, but for people and individuals like Stephen and I in the long view.
My. Well, I think one of the things in the long view is this word. We use it that often, but it's an important word: legacy. You know, what does your legacy look like? Or what do you want your legacy to? What do you want to be remembered for? What seeds, as you say, Shawn, have you planted that will? It may be the size of a mustard seed. But when they finish growing, after they get watered by not only your wisdom and the tears of your wisdom, but those of others that follow you, it's because that you planted it. You know, Alfonso Wyatt planted it. Ron Walker planted the seed. It continues on. And we know that of those seeds that have been planted before us by icons and folks and relatives and ancestors, that we still go to see shade under that tree. So I think that legacy tree is important. I think part of what I've heard today, very clearly from my good brother Alfonzo, and what I've tried to say is to take the mess out of the message. Be clear with what we're saying to people. Be clear with the kind of advice or counsel, mentorship, guidance we want to give. Again, back to the word authentic, unadulterated, raw, not overly polished, not with ruffles and flourishes, but what is the essence of your truth, which speaks to the word truth, being truthful, living with yourself, being truthful, being honest. That whole notion of being incarcerated in your own mind, I'm taking that away with me, because again, I've worked with so many young men who are incarcerated in their mind. I'm taking that I'm getting that book, Alfonso, because I think that's where it is. And how do we unlock the shackles on the minds of our young men and young women? That's part of our role, to do that.
For me, I like that line that you gave, but I also like the opportunity to talk to both of you and to talk to the folk that's on this call. There are things in life that life cannot prepare you for. All of you, for the most part, are going to be taking care of your elders. Mm-hmm. There's going to come a time. That was what that call was when I went off screen, because later on today, I have to take my mom to the doctor. As much as all that I do, let me tell you what I'm proud of. I'm proud of the fact that I do my mama's laundry. Mm-hmm. And when you can be proud of things that won't show up in the like column, but are important, that's when you know that you have transcended to a level. Legacy is real important. There's more water has flown, came up under Ron's bridge and Alfonso's bridge than water that's coming up. I got more water that's downstream. Mm-hmm. I'm glad I'm in stream, y'all. So there are things that you have to prepare for in your mind as you look forward, the long view. The short term is always exciting. Building is exciting. Keeping is work.
That's right.
Most people want the excitement of the entrepreneurial moment. But once you get past the excitement, it is the keeping. It is the responsibility of having. And that's one of the reasons, and I don't want to open another door, but that's one of the reasons that people self-sabotage once they realize, wait a minute, I got to keep all of this up. It's easier for me to mess it up than to keep it up.
That's right.
Somebody got to fess up. Come on, somebody.
Drop them bars.
So let me leave that.
This is what we're gonna do. This is part one, right? We're gonna circle back for part two at some point. And I know that what you both just said resonated with my dear brother Stephen Hart, who is currently, taking care of his dad, right? And you talk about elder care. So I don't know if you even knew that, Alfonso, but I know that it resonated with you.
And he's right here listening.
He's listening.
He's right here listening to you.
So Stephen, I'm going to turn it over to you to close. I have to jump off shortly, like in 45 seconds for 9 o'clock. But I want to let you know that I love you, brother, and thank you for all that you do and who you are, and for creating this platform and space that we can invite the OGs, the original geniuses, Ron Walker and Alfonso Wyatt. And I'm going to ask you to close us out, Stephen.
Absolutely. Listen, I am blessed. On behalf of Blazer Nation, this has just blessed my soul this morning. So thank you both very much. I knew you guys were going to bring a word. I've heard the Rev. Rev has pulled me out at Rumble before and spoken to my soul. And Ron, you're right there. So much wisdom. And I just appreciate you both just blessing us this morning. So thank you all. As Shawn said, this is definitely part one. We need to continue this again real soon. But listen, Blazer Nation, join us here on Friday. We will be having another amazing interview bright and early at 8 a.m. Eastern. So look forward to connecting with you then, and go out and rise above, go way beyond, and keep blazing your trail.